I may get up and walk around a little bit. I may preach before this is over with tonight. So, Kenny, thank you, and to your family, Mary Beth, thank you for a great afternoon, and those of you who may not have been informed, I think you saw a young man who was here a little earlier who was wounded in action in Iraq and has really faced a lot of struggles in his life, both physically and mentally, and he's got an incredible little family, and Kenny and a group of like-minded folks from this part of Kentucky pitched in to hand him this afternoon the keys to a new home. So thank you for that. You all too often we don't say thank you enough to those young men and women who have given so much to this country, and that was a small way. It was huge for them, and so I hope all of you just every day that we live in the most wonderful country in the world. Yeah, we've got our challenges, and I'm going to talk about those challenges a little bit tonight. But let me tell you what a grand place we live in, where these extraordinary young men and women sacrificially serve, and some don't come home. As a matter of fact, there are a couple of Gold Star girls here that I want to stand up. Maria and Catherine James, where are you in this crowd? I want you to stand up. I know they're in here somewhere, back in the back right there. Tell them thank you. Their dad made the ultimate sacrifice for the privilege of us to be here. And that, I hope, if you don't leave with a lot of remembrances about tonight, but that there are young men and women around the world tonight. They're putting themselves between those who would do harm to the United States so that we can be here. We can be here to enjoy this festivity, the fellowship, the food, to hear that beautiful song. I'm telling you, you all have a great state song. Now, I mean, there aren't a lot of things I'll stand up in front of people and admit, but man, I'm telling you, y'all's state song is awesome. I'm thinking that may be better than the Texas state song even. See, most people always get that confused. I bet if I ask people, what is the state song of Texas? Yeah. Eyes of Texas? I haven't heard the Texas state song yet. It's Texas, Our Texas. There you go. Not a lot of people singing that. So that's it. You're not going to hear me dissing Texas anymore tonight. That's the only time you're going to hear it. But Maria and Catherine, again, God bless you. And know that this crowd and people across this country love you and keep you in our prayers. And I was just thinking about this relationship, this amazing historical relationship between Kentucky and Texas. Kenny talked about, you all sent Jim Bowie to Texas back in the early part of the 1800s to fight for freedom. Some of my friends in Tennessee say if it wasn't for Kentucky and Tennessee, there wouldn't be no Texas. Now, there may be something to that a little bit when you think about the extraordinary events that happened there in 1835 and 1836. But fighting for freedom is something that is powerfully ingrained in places like Murray, Kentucky. People understand instinctively that there is an extraordinary power to freedom. And that's actually what I'm going to share with you tonight, what freedom can do for Kentucky. And I'm talking about freedom from over taxation, freedom from over litigation, freedom from over regulation. You know what I mean? That's what you all need. I want to relate to you that this relationship between Kentucky and Texas wasn't something that's historical and behind us now with Jim Bowie and the Alamo. It's the early days of the second decade of the 21st century, and how this relationship, what we can learn from each other. I was sitting here thinking about the number 6. I played six-man football. Y'all even know what six-man football is here? It's kind of, it may be, y'all may not have communities small enough to play six-man football. It's because we didn't have enough people to play 11-man. We didn't even have enough people to play 8-man. So we played six-man football. And I love six-man football. I love the number 6. Sam Houston was 6 foot 6 inches tall, and Mitch McConnell's going to be in his 6th term as a United States Senator. See, I kind of like the number 6. And you need 6 more Republicans in the House of Representatives, and then you will be coming to the promised land. And let me share with you what I mean with that. I don't think Texas and Kentucky are that much different when it comes to philosophically what's at their core, what they believe in. When you look at these two states, you look at the historical basis of their agricultural history. You look at the opportunities that are there in the state from the standpoint of small business men and women. You look what's happening in eastern Kentucky. You look at the assault on that industry by a federal government that is driving eastern Kentucky into a depression like they haven't seen since the last Great Depression. That's what's happening in eastern Kentucky. I think we need leadership in this country that understands that the future, you all remember 6 years ago, and there were people who stood up and said, the fossil fuel industry is over with in the United States. It is done. We are at peak oil, and you need to find all the alternative fuels that they're going to have out there because it's over. Well, somebody forgot to tell George Mitchell that. George Mitchell is the man who came up with that innovative way to deliver natural gas through hydraulic fracturing. He's changed the world. You see, I believe there's a professor or someone in the private sector out there who's working on the way to use coal in this country in an extraordinary way to deliver energy that's clean, that's efficient. I know that can happen. I believe in the American people enough to know that it can happen. Yet we have a President of the United States, I will suggest to you, does not believe in the ingenuity, in the innovation of the American people. And I'll promise you something else, he doesn't trust you. Because 2 weeks ago I sat in his office with about 40 other governors, Democrats and Republicans, Senator, and we were talking about Obamacare and that it was very, very problematic in our states. And that if you would allow us, Mr. President, the flexibility to implement programs in our states. And he looked at those governors, all of them, Democrats and Republicans, and basically said, I do not trust you to deliver health care for your citizens. I can't think of a statement to men and women who have stood before their citizens in an election to lay out ideas, and they were elected by those individuals, and the president say, I don't trust you to do that. America has always been about innovation. Whether it was that individual at Texas Instruments that came up with that microchip, whether it's that young person at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas tonight that has the next big thing that will change the world. You see, believing in our people, believing in this country, should be the most powerful statement that comes from the highest office in America. But it's not. That's one of the reasons I think it is so important that we, every day, send the message across this country that the solutions to the issues that challenge us as a nation are not going to come from Washington, D.C. They're going to come from the states, the 50 laboratories of innovation. That's where it's going to be, Kenny. And it can start in Kentucky, but you have to have 6 more Republicans in the House of Representatives. And let me share with you why that is so important. And the proof of this, it's not theory. Because a lot of people thought that Texas became a Republican state when George W. Bush got elected governor in 1994, and then he took office in 95. But the fact is there was still a Democrat speaker and a Democrat lieutenant governor. As a matter of fact, I think even the House was still maybe Democrat then. Well, surely when I got elected and George got reelected as the last statewide elected Democrat went away in January of 1999, when I said, so help me God, and took my hand off the Bible and I became the lieutenant governor. We had a governor that was a Republican, a lieutenant governor, but the speaker was still, and the House was still under that control. It wasn't until 2003 that the Texas House, the Texas Senate, lieutenant governor, speaker, and the lieutenant governor were all Republicans. And interesting things started happening in Texas. We passed the most sweeping tort reform in the nation. We filled a $10 billion budget shortfall without raising taxes. We started a regulatory review of which the regulations in the state started being thoughtfully and smartly put into place. And you all know the story today. You talked a little bit about it. Over that decade, almost 30% of all the jobs created in America were created in the state of Texas. We are the #1 exporting state for 11 straight years in a row. We passed California as the #1 technology exporting state in the nation this year. Those are powerful messages. There are young men and women who maybe 5 or 6 years ago, they might have had a minimum wage job at best. Today, they're making over $100,000 a year in the energy industry in the state of Texas. That can happen in this state. But you have to put in place those 6 individuals who truly believe in all their heart that if you free the small businessman from overtaxation, overregulation, over litigation. I met the Lyleses a little bit ago. There's a couple of young doctors. I think an internist and a radiologist. In 2003, we passed this tort reform in Texas that protected them from the frivolous lawsuits that had been pushing physicians out of the practice of medicine in our state. I mean, we had places in the state, if you were a pregnant female, you had to drive outside of your county to find prenatal care. This wasn't about doctors making more money. This was about access to health care. Today, 10 years after that passed, and I might add, we codified it in our Constitution. There are over 30,000 more doctors licensed to practice medicine. Think about that. Think about that if you're a mom in the Rio Grande Valley and you're hundreds of miles from the closest neurosurgeon and your child falls off the back with a closed head injury. Today, those counties have those subspecialists there. They have access to that type of health care. That's what you can do in Kentucky. And then I ran into a young man who's a senior at Callaway County High, Eric Winkler. I said, what are you going to do? Where are you going? He got a big smile on his face and he said, I'm going to go watch the Wildcats play basketball. And he said, I'm going to become an engineer. What a great, great idea that he has. If you don't change your house, the chances are he may come to Texas. And that is, if you will, putting it into perspective. Because that's what we do. We compete against each other. There are 50 laboratories of innovation out there. We compete. And we put tax policy and regulatory policy. I can promise you, I get up every morning and I'm nervous about what Bobby Jindal's doing in Louisiana. And I know for a fact that Rick Scott's over there in Florida looking at his tax code, looking at his regulatory code. He's trying to pass major tort reform in Florida today. He makes me nervous. But you know what? I don't particularly worry about Kentucky. Because I'm not worried about your governor passing tort reform. You think about that. If you want this state to be competitive, and listen, Tennessee, you think Bill Haslam's not sitting down there kind of looking up here going, which one of those businesses I'm not going to come get this next time? Because he's a right-to-work state. He doesn't have a personal income tax. You got to get rid of those if you're going to be competitive. That's what this game is all about. It is about electing men and women who are not beholden to these personal injury trial lawyers, that are not beholden to the special interests that are out there, that understand that you can compete. Because if your state is surrounded by states that don't have personal income tax, that are right to work, businesses are not going to come. And if you want this state to be competitive, you better elect 6 pro-business, tort reform-minded Republicans to the House, and then in 2015, elect a governor that thinks the same way. That's how you change Kentucky. Jim Bowie was willing to give up everything for freedom. I hope there are a new generation of young men and women that are willing to give up everything, if you will, to change this state, to put Kentucky on a track that will make it competitive again. I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about the future because I believe in Americans. I believe in this country. I believe in the innovators. I believe in the men and women, those small business men and women who just, if they'll be given the opportunity, if they know that they can keep more of what they work for, if they know that they're not going to be regulated out of competition, if they know they're not going to be litigated out of their ability to deliver their services, then the future of this country is incredibly bright. I think I said in some remarks the other day at CPAC that every now and then it's good to have a little rebellion. And I think it's time to have a little rebellion in Kentucky. The future of our country starts here. It starts in those House races. Because if Kentucky becomes a red state, and Kentucky puts into place tax policy, regulatory policy, legal policies, you go in and make this a right-to-work state. You go in and get rid of that personal income tax, and the explosion economically will be tremendous. The future of America is inextricably intertwined with Kentucky and how these elections come out this time. I will suggest to you the future of our country is bright. We need to change a few things, like the White House. But we can do that. You can put this country on track so quickly. Opening up the energy resources that we have. Open up and let the XL pipeline be built and the jobs that can be created. Those are powerful things. Tax policy. But you put tax policy into place and an energy policy in, and then I tell people, I said, listen, I want Washington, D.C. to be substantially less consequential in my life. As a governor, as a citizen. Look at those things. Look at those things that the Constitution says that Washington should do. Do those and do them really well. And then respect the 10th Amendment. That 10th Amendment that says, here are the things that we're going to do really well at the federal level, and then you states take care of the rest of these. I know for a fact that governors and legislatures can deliver health care better than some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. I know that for a fact. I trust Jerry Brown in California to deliver health care better than Washington, D.C. I told the governor that. And I can promise you, in Texas, we'll do it better, more efficiently, more effectively. We'll give more options out there. We'll come up with an array of ways to deliver health care. And I know with all my heart that governors and legislatures know how to educate the children of their states better than a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. That's the future of this country. I see an extraordinary and a bright country where mothers and dads know that their children are going to have a bright future because the economy is powerful. That the states are those laboratories of innovation. And listen, we're a very diverse people in this country. I get it. Not everybody in Connecticut wants to be a Texan. I get that. And if you want to live in a place that has a fairly substantial tax rate, if you want to live in a place that has a high regulatory burden, if you want to live in a place where the litigation is freely flowing, you're welcome to live in New York. It's there for you. You're welcome to it. But if you want to live in freedom, if you want to live in a place where you're not overtaxed, overregulated, overlitigated, there ought to be havens like that all over this country, and then we'll compete against each other. That's the future of America, folks, and Kentucky can be right at the epicenter of that with the work that you're going to do over the course of the next days. God bless you. Thank you. Let's get this done.
Governor, I know one of your hallmarks, as you can see, I've got my boots on tonight too. One of the hallmarks, I understand, of you as governor and as being a true Texan is your boots. And I remember back in our age that Nancy Sinatra had a song that went something to, "These boots are made for walking." Governor, your boots are made for running.